Hey everyone, Andy Raffel from eTechnics.com, and you may have seen some of the videos we've been doing lately where we've kind of been testing game performance, and then a game came out that I guess I've been waiting quite a while for, just on a personal level. So today we're going to be looking at the performance on plenty of different graphics cards in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Let's do this. So the first thing I want to sort of say is about Breakpoint itself. If you didn't get a chance to play the open beta, boy did you miss out, because it was absolutely amazing. I found myself playing the game in co-op mode with a friend of mine and then sort of looked down at my clock and realised it was 2 o'clock in the morning and that I should go to bed. And that pretty much happened for every single day of the beta. I just got so kind of engrossed in it and thought it was absolutely amazing. I was actually quite a big player back in the day when I was about 13 years old, so quite a long time ago, of the original Ghost Recon, Desert Siege, Island Thunder, and I absolutely love them games. This is completely different in terms of the style and everything, but it still has kind of, I guess, the essence that I think was kind of lost along the way with kind of the Ghost Recon series. So what was it, Advanced Warfighter? I just couldn't get into that. The main problem with that I found, instead of having a reticule like the original Ghost Recon, you kind of had a gun that took up most of the screen. This has changed from that, and there's so much you can do in this game. The maps, I mean, the map is just absolutely huge. For anyone who ever played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, you'd know how big the map was on that. It took us in a helicopter to get from one side of the map to the other about a good 10 minutes. It was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we may have got lost along the way, but still. Let's move on. Graphics cards. So we basically took a whole host of graphics cards to test in this game, because when we tested Borderlands 3, and I will be sure to link that somewhere, a lot of people sort of said about the fact we were only testing the latest graphics cards, and what about people with older hardware? So instead we've kind of changed that. So we have a 2080 Ti, we have the 5700 XT, so we've got the flagships, I guess, from AMD. We have got sort of older generation cards, so 1050. We have got 1050 Ti, 1660 Ti, RX 570, 1080, 2070, the Super Series. We've really kind of gone all out on this for the last gen, the current gen, both from AMD and NVIDIA. But I want to talk about sort of graphics card settings. So looking at the settings that we're actually running, just so you guys can, I guess, replicate it. So you can see, I guess, how your card falls in line with what we've tested, because you may have something a little bit different. You may have a slightly pre-overclocked model. You may have even an older generation card. So I want to go through that. So to start with, window mode, we're in full screen. We're at 16:9, and then we change the resolution from 1920 to 2560 to 3840 by 2160 or 4K. Obviously making sure that VSync is turned off, because we don't want any limitations with the frame rate, and our refresh rate is set to 60 Hz, which is the limitation of the monitor. Resolution scaling is set to 100, and we don't need to change that. Now, certain things that we do turn off because they do favor, I guess, AMD over NVIDIA or NVIDIA over AMD. You may have found in some of our previous stuff, it's turning off things like Tress FX. And in this case, it's actually turning off the sharpening. So we've got anti-aliasing on, but sharpening, it has got Fidelity FX sharpening, which does actually favor AMD over NVIDIA. So we wanted to make sure that turned it off to kind of give it a level playing field. And then the preset we've set to high. What that does is basically turns on screen space shadows, turns on motion blur, bloom, and fog background blur, but it basically sets everything else to high. And then we can simply click on run the benchmark, and away it goes. It lasts for about, I guess, a minute and a half. I will warn you now, it is actually in a beta stage, so we did find some anomalies along the way. Just like that, you click on run benchmark and it just kicks you back to here, but they have mentioned that it is a beta, so we can't really comment too much on it. But anyone who's ever seen The Division and how that runs, or Ghost Recon Wildlands, this kind of runs in exactly the same way. So it does give us our FPS up here, tells us what the average is, tells us what the high and what the low is, as well as what the CPU percentage or usage is. So at the moment we're at 57%. In terms of the test bench we're using, we've got the i9-9900K, so yeah, I'm not really expecting this CPU usage to go wildly up in the air. We are testing this currently on the RTX 2070 Gaming Z from MSI, but this was just a card that I put in there just for the purposes of this video, but we will show you performance figures for quite a few different cards. GPU performance, currently usage, we're at 95%. And then it basically tells us how many frames we've rendered, what resolution we're at, telling us if the FPS limit is off or the VSync is off, which is quite a handy thing for benchmarkers, purely from the standpoint of sometimes you sort of think, well, why am I getting these weird results? You have to go back into the settings, exit out of the benchmark, and games like the Division 2, you couldn't actually get out of the benchmark. You kind of, once it was running, that was it was running. And then it tells us quite a few, I guess, nice figures to sort of look at. So our GPU temperature. It also tells us what our CPU core usage is across all of the various threads. So obviously we have an 8-core 16-thread processor, so we have all 16 threads on here. And then just gives us some information about what processor we're using, what speed it's at, how many cores it has, what graphics card, the driver version, and so forth. Now, obviously at the time of filming this, we are using the latest drivers, but there's nothing to say with a new game like this that there aren't going to be new drivers from both AMD and NVIDIA coming out at a later date. So I'm guessing the key kind of thing that I'm trying to point out there is if the figures don't line up at the time of you watching this video, there could be reasons down to driver versions. So it's about sort of just over halfway through the benchmark. We're currently getting 107, 112 frames per second. The lowest that we've got is 61, the highest at 157. So definitely over that playable 60 FPS marker. But obviously this is a 2070 and it is the Gaming Z model, which is slightly pre-factory overclocked. So, and we are at 1080p. Obviously we could go up to 1440p and I still believe we would get decent frame rates, playable frame rates on this particular card. So let me know in the comments section below what card you're running. Are you actually playing this game? Are you looking at potentially getting this game and you just want to kind of see these kind of figures and sort of see how your card is going to fare in this game at the resolution that you play at? Obviously when you look at things like the Steam server, you will notice that 1080p is kind of the dominating resolution, so that's why I'm testing this at 1080p. Obviously as soon as you go up to 1440 or 4K, yeah, it's going to dip down, but then you could always tweak the settings from high down to medium or even low, just to kind of, you know, offer up some, I guess, more frames for the sake of, you know, pretty graphics and things like that. So at the end of the benchmark, it does give you this. So it actually gives you a total score. We got an A, so that's always good. It tells you what the actual frame score is. So again, great for comparison purposes. And then tells us FPS, which came out at 107, minimum at 61. So well above that marker that we were sort of hoping for. And then of course, again, CPU usage and GPU usage. So with that in mind, obviously we have now tested the 2070 Gaming Z from MSI. It's time to sort of test all the other cards. So previous gen, current gen, both from AMD and NVIDIA. So let's see how they do. Run them glorious benchmarks. So there you have it, all the performance results for a variety of different cards. As I mentioned, previous gen, current gen, AMD and NVIDIA. Hopefully in the future, you know, there might be Intel somewhere within this stack, but that's still a long way off. Now, what I want to know is kind of what card you've got and where yours kind of falls within the results that we show. And you probably did notice that there was a few anomalies. So mainly the 2060 Super doing better than a 2070 Super. But I don't think there's anything sinister in it. And I'm going to sort of point this back out again. Benchmark beta. You can't really blame Ubisoft for any, I guess, results that come out that wasn't what you were expecting, purely because they can just turn around and say, sorry, it's a beta or a beta, however you want to word it. So it did give us a nice comparison, but as I mentioned, there are a few anomalies in it, which I did test over and over and over and still got exactly the same results on the 2060 Super, on the 2070 Super, because I actually honestly thought when I saw the results, something's quite squiffy here. And so yeah, a bit of a weird one, we've got to admit. But hopefully this kind of gave you a bit of an indication as to roughly where your card will fall. If you are looking at buying this game, it hopefully gives you an indication as to whether it will run on the hardware that you have. And if you have already bought this game, let me know in the comments section below. Maybe we can team up and have a little co-op campaign together. Overall though, I didn't really want this to be about the game as such, it's more about performance, but we will have a written version of this as well, where we will kind of delve into a little bit background kind of story behind the game, but we don't want to give away too much because obviously we could ruin some of the game for people who are potentially looking to buy it, and we don't want to do that whole kind of spoiler attitude. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know if you like these performance type videos where we do kind of drill down into the raw kind of nitty-gritty figures of exactly how various different graphics cards perform. And I will see you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.